Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of FreeThought Hour. Now, I have a couple of extra people today. I normally have, as you know, my co-host Tercia, who's in South Africa. Hello, Tercia, welcome. Oh, you've got a cat climbing through your ear. And out the other side. I can see there's nothing in between, is there?
Absolutely nothing. No, it's just a headdress tonight, nothing else. I'm well, thank you, John. I'm well. Much better than last week.
Oh, good. Yes, because you were quite husky, poor girl. Yes.
Yeah.
But in addition, this week we have Esther the Afro Humanist, who's joining us. Hello, Esther. Welcome.
Hello.
And the reason that we've got Esther is because Esther is a...
WhatsApp audio. Sorry.
What was that?
My son.
I see. So Esther is with us today because she is a British Nigerian. I think that's right, isn't it? Because you came to this country 20 years ago.
Over 20 years ago.
Was it? Yes. And so the early part of your life was in Nigeria. And the reason that you're here particularly is because our guest tonight is Nigerian Barra Hart. Welcome.
Hey, Barra.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Good. So the format of this show is normally we start by asking people how they got to be the person they are today. And I know you've got an interesting story because you had an unusual schooling and now you're an author and there's some other things. Would you like to tell us about that, please?
So do I start at the beginning?
Or earlier, if you like.
Okay. So in the beginning, there was parents, and then so I was raised, right? that was a poor joke, very poor joke. Okay, so I'll start with how the sort of ideas I was raised in and my foundation. I consider myself fortunate in a lot of ways. How I was raised, my background, I've had a lot of luck. So I was raised not too well off, but we did okay for a long time, for many, many years. And the religion I was raised in was a New Age religion. And so that's part of why I consider myself fortunate, because it was a pretty liberal system. And so it wasn't the nature of the religious upbringing that took me out of that system. It was what I would come to learn. So I went to a pretty normal school as a kid, but things started to get interesting in secondary school because I got the opportunity to go to a really good secondary school. And throughout my childhood, not a lot was accessible, but when I started secondary school, that was when I encountered my first library. And so as one does, I went crazy with the literature and I got really curious, and that sort of died down when I discovered social media again as a teen. Skip to university. So that was when my life got a bit more complicated. I was always curious. I was always inquisitive. I was always questioning things. But for most of my life, I didn't know what to do with I didn't know what was happening to this thing here, right? For much of my life, I didn't know how to handle my ideas. I didn't know why other people didn't seem to see the things I did. It would sometimes make me bitter. It would sometimes make me annoying. It made me a lot of things. I just didn't know what was going on. And then so throughout that time, we had lived in the north of Nigeria, where things are extremely interesting. And then catastrophes sort of struck with Boko Haram and everything, and that affected a lot of areas in the north. And we narrowly missed the worst of it. So for some mysterious reason, it's never been solved. We lost our house in a strange, weird fire, and so we left that part of the country just about maybe weeks before Boko Haram captured the area in which we were living. And eventually that was sorted out, and the army drove them out, but this was in the heat of everything. So we just missed it, and we lost a friend actually. But then we moved to the capital city, which is where I live now, which is where I've lived for.
Sorry, can I just ask something here?
Sure.
I want to know, how old were you when all of this took part, or when all of this happened? You were in your 20s?
When disaster struck?
Yes.
This was in my teens. This was when I had just yes. I should have been very specific. So this was in my teens. I was around 16, I think, when I graduated from secondary school, which was good. It was a good school, so I had a lot of good opportunities there, but I was still very confused about what was happening internally. I think I can hear myself.
You're fine here.
Okay, that stopped. Okay. So I was around 16 when that happened. So we moved to the capital city, and it was tough. I mean, things had gotten worse over time. We were fine when I was a kid, and things got worse with the country and the economy and da da da. But then we moved to the capital city, and that was tough. We were basically homeless for a while as a family. But
Can I pin you down a bit here too, Barra? Because what we don't know is your current age, and I'm wondering whether when you say Boko Haram came, and
yes,
how does this fit in? Because fairly recently they ran off with about 400 Chibok schoolgirls, didn't they?
I have an interesting connection to that I may get to or I may not get to, but yes. But this was 2013 for me.
2013, right? Because that's a bit more recent, isn't it? Then.
Yeah, I mean they'd been around for a while, but when they started to hit the town I was in, that was around 2013. So we narrowly missed that. I was about 16 then. I'm now 25, so it's been a while, and we were really fortunate. But when we moved here and we're trying to we've eventually found our feet, but there was some tragedy and some loss, and that tragedy sort of sparked the will in my I may have to be specific. Sorry, this may get dark, so I will have to be specific just for the sake of clarity. So in 2014, after about the better part of a year of not having a place to stay, we're staying with different people, trying to rent out a small place, sharing rooms, that kind of thing, as one does. Because we'd lost everything, so we moved to a new town with nothing, and we just wanted to. Both my parents wanted to make it here, right? So then I got into a pretty bad accident, a fire accident, right? And I mean, it was bad, but I pulled through, and my father was a great source of strength during my healing. But because of the way health is here, I had to do. I basically was treated at home. So my sick bed was just in the middle of our parlor. So I had the bed, and everyone had to sleep on mats or the floor. It was complicated, right? But it was. I got a lot of support and a lot of strength through that, and especially through my father, I was pretty naive then. So the idea of perseverance kind of came from him, and that really low point. And so I got better, and when I could walk and everything was okay. Later that year, he passed away for
Wow.
complicated reasons. Fairly young, 52, and it was
So
a
sorry.
healthy coincidence, right? So that was pretty low. So what came from that was we had very few prospects, but my mom was like it was his wish that we just get the best we could get. So my mom was like, I'm gonna send you to the best university in this country, right?
Mm.
So we didn't know how it was gonna happen. I was old enough for university at that time, so I was the first, and so that was my first semester in the well. I can share this. I'm trying not to share too much, obviously, because I have to keep a lot of things private because of what I do
Well,
and the
I
kinds of
was
things I
gonna,
talk about.
I
But
meant to say at the beginning, don't reveal anything that risks your safety.
yeah,
Yes.
it's okay. I mean, these are fairly. I'm treading well so far.
Good.
So okay, so it's the college I went to was called AUN, the American University of Nigeria. So it's this humanitarian project it was built by a politician whose his stories he's done good, but he's also got a complicated history. But it was a really good project. It was built with the support of the American government, and it's basically a non-profit. So there's nothing quite like it in the country, and it's like, well, obviously it was expensive. So but we were like, okay, let's go there. And that was when things got really exciting for me.
Hmm.
Now I was still attached to the system I was raised in. Obviously, I was trying to make sense of everything, but I was still grounded by that belief system, right? I took it for granted. It's as I was always kind of curious and wondering what the hell is this? What the hell is this? Why are you doing that? Why are you saying this? But I took the foundation for granted, if that makes sense. So I went to this school, and then it was first semester was tough because we could not afford to go there, period.
Yeah.
It was just trying penny after penny, what with feeding bills. I mean, it was a lot of work. And funny, the slightly a light note, I actually okay, after the first semester, I performed so well in the first semester that I was given a full scholarship all the way. So that was
Brilliant.
good.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was a tough process to apply for. It was complicated. I don't think I've ever filled that many blanks in a document in my life, but it was worth it.
Barra,
And
what were your sorry?
yeah.
What were your subjects that you took?
Oh,
Was humanities and more sciences? I'm
I
keen
was
to.
always sciences, and I just went for computer science because I was curious about it. I never really gave it
Okay.
much thought. I mean, there were other things that I later figured out were being offered in that university that I would have taken if I had known they existed, but I didn't know anything. I was like, I just loved the school. I wanted to go there. So,
Yeah.
and I do love digital technologies. I have a knack for it. I'm sort of an all rounder. I'm curious about a lot of things. I always was.
Okay.
So it's just
Cool.
something I picked. Yeah, and it was great. It was a great adventure. But the funny story is that I didn't pay off my debt from that first semester until the semester I graduated from that school.
Yeah.
So that was the situation.
You would
That
never have been able to complete without the scholarship. That's what
Without
you're
the
saying.
scholarship, it was something. So it was something that I grabbed like this way.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
Oh, has he frozen?
Yes, it looks like it.
Oh dear.
I
Oh,
I
well,
can
well,
I can
100% identify, not identify, I can relate in a way, because in Nigeria, you pay heavy fees.
Yeah.
Sorry, we lost you for a second, Barra. Is he back there?
Yeah, I think it's still frozen.
Esther,
No, it's moving now.
What happened?
You froze.
It's
Oh,
still frozen.
okay.
Connection.
Yeah, I think my internet is fine.
Well, something
Can I just
went
carry on?
wrong.
Okay.
We were all connected, but you were not moving. You were like a statue. Technology.
Yep.
Carry on.
Please do.
Okay.
What has happened since your university?
I'll try my best to summarize. The opportunities like what I know, why I do what I do, and it was finally chose to break away from. By then, I'd learned enough, and after graduating, I was forge my own path. My major in that university, a lot along the way, and what I had been doing since secondary school. And I loved good writers could write. I loved trying to emulate, and I was a shit reader, slow, because I was too obsessed with single book I read. And there was a novel which actually has inspired a lot of what that I never finished. Borrowed it throughout my time. Now I have it on my phone. Still, I was that obsessed. This kind of built a foundation that much of. I was just writing during my time at uni, guest professor. In the first page of the novel, I thought I write a novel, so I was like, okay, let me write it. Write this novel. I was like, and so that's now it's mostly trying to. So that's what I do. Other things, but now I'm more focused on. Yeah.
Were you able to get your novel published?
Yes, it's been published for a while. I'm trying, but I published it independently. If this is the appropriate place to share.
Yes. Yeah. Tell us the title of it, and I'll put it up for you.
Okay, sure. Well, the novel, it's a work of science fiction. It's set. Oh, cool. I think this is the YouTube channel. And it's a vision of. It's a vision of the future that I felt, at least the way I'm sharing it. Published it independently. The story of my I tried previously, so it took all of 102 rejections. Put it
102
out.
rejected. Wow, that's a lot. So what's the title?
A Kind of Tomorrow.
My keyboard is. Yeah, a kind of tomorrow
Kind of tomorrow.
isn't too good, so I type it, but I have to use the on. Yes, that's precisely. Yeah. So do you want me to talk more about the story itself, or?
Barra, I would like to. I've just read a blurb. I see that on the website that it's a Stellar. It's a science fiction website that I read about your book, and something that I find interesting is that it says that often science fiction and visions of the future are very negative and pessimistic, and it seems that your novel sort of explores something that is unexpected in science fiction in the sense that it's more optimistic and that it deals with unshackling Africa from its dark past, or at least its past as a seemingly a dark continent. And as a person who see myself as an African, I would like you to explore those themes, because uh, it would be nice to have some light in the darkness.
Yeah, the idea was, I've always been a fan of science fiction, and I'm a fan of all sorts of science fiction. I loved dystopias. I've always loved those dark, gritty. But when I was when I was writing this story earlier, it went through a lot of iterations. But when I finally decided to put this story out myself, it's like, okay, I'm done trying to impress agents. I'm just gonna write what I want to write, and I thought, why not speak about some notice about the world. See, as when I was younger, when I was in university, and you're exposed to a lot of things that are wrong with and belief systems, schools of thought that promise to address aggressively are very attractive, right? But in the world, which was how many people and how visions of the future that we see very rarely address that. And these things aren't secrets, they're known, but there's an attraction that, sorry, my sound is, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can hear you, yes.
Tercia, can you hear me?
Yeah, sometimes your sound's breaking up, but maybe it's on my side, but
No,
I'm
no.
doing my best. It's
On my side as well.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's
Oh,
your connection, Sarah.
Would it help if he turns his camera off? Take the load off?
It might. Do you want to try that?
Okay, let me see.
Now speak.
How's my sound?
Keep speaking.
Speaking, and speaking.
It sounds a little bit better.
Sounding good.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Try that.
It's odd. Huh, okay.
So
I'll just carry on.
What we would like to know is this novel sounds a bit sort of autobiographical to me, and it's obviously grounded in your experiences in Nigeria, and I know that Esther is somewhat concerned about goings on in Nigeria at the moment. So I wonder if you could tell us a bit about that. What are your feelings about your country right now?
Well, as I said earlier in our conversation, we have a and our history is complicated, and a lot of people here have settled for ideas that are easy, but that they know these ideas come naturally, these belief systems come naturally to people, and because they come so naturally, it's hard for people to see the connections between bad ideas, because the bad ideas are easy and they're natural, and they have that, and there's a sort of intoxicating cultural effect. It's not just religious ideas, it's the wider cultural landscape. The fact that we've been so historically, I mean, in the past 60 years alone, that it's a lot of things that we consider to be everyday, and the the solution to that is time, really. I personally wrote this story the way I did. What the characters are all, they're either based on aspects of myself, which is a different and complicated how it's me empathizing with different lens of whether it's a journalist trying to write a story who've just come out of service and don't know where their direction is, or an instrument of the government itself, or of a corrupt government, a thug, right? So it's just these different characters that I'm trying to I try to explore Nigeria through their eyes, but the how do I say, the catch is what happens when you put this, when you drop this bomb of this extraordinary sort of miracle in the center of all that chaos and all that compromise. What then do human beings do? How would the human that is so obvious, something that works so well, I mean, would it just be, would that's history? So history says otherwise. That people can change. The the inspiration just has to be extraordinary enough. So it's me using these crazy sci-fi ideas to consciousness, about human consciousness, how it responds to what happens in the external world.
Barra, I want to ask you something. You said something in the introduction. You said one of the things that struck me. You said I had a lot of luck, and I found that very poignant to say that you had a lot of luck. So that's something that I would maybe like you to explore. But even more than that, especially in view of your novel and the themes that you explore in the novel, you also said that when you were introduced to libraries, you were besotted and you were curious, and you spent a lot of time in libraries. And then you said there was a time when you spent a lot of time on social media. And unless I'm mistaken, you said it made you less curious to spend so much time on social media. Now, I want to ask two things.
Not really. Not really less curious.
Okay, well, did it have an influence on how you engage? Did your time as a teenager, spending a lot of time on social media, how did that change how you engaged with other things in your environment? And I'm asking that because as a parent and an educator who
Mm.
deal with children daily and who live in a society, I think in South Africa, something like 60% of our population is younger than 30 or something. And I think it might be the same for Nigeria,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. I think Africa
Yeah.
as a whole has a very young population of
Roughly.
of which we are representative. And I'm quite pessimistic about the future in the sense that I think social media, which has the power to be very positive, is dumbing down and numbing the curiosity of young people.
No.
So, how what would you say to somebody who's in her almost 50s when I say I'm really concerned about the future because of young people only engaging with TikTok, 3-second TikTok videos,
Mm.
and not reading and not being engaged in the world around them?
There's a lot to unpack and clarify, but I'll start with this. Don't in a bit, but first, do you mind if I try if there's any improvement?
Okay, go ahead.
May I try to? Is my audio?
Your sound is lagging. That's the problem.
You could go out and maybe come back in again. Might work.
Yeah, it's worth a try.
Yeah, I think try
Start
that.
start all over again.
You want me to?
Leave and come back.
Okay, all right. Let me see.
See if that helps. Meanwhile, can I ask you, Esther, because you I think relate to some of what we've heard Barra telling when we could hear what he was saying,
Yes.
and you have seen a very different sort of society since you've been in the UK. So would
Yes,
you like
I have.
to, give us some of that background?
It's interesting. I would want to know from Bara what religion he identified with, because Nigeria, it's half and half, Christianity and Islam. Um, so I'm interested to know the parts that he described growing up in. That's the northern region. That's the Muslim,
Yes.
predominantly Muslim parts. So I am curious to know what his experience is or was with fundamental Islamists. I grew up in the south,
Uh-huh. Yep.
so which was predominantly Christian,
Yes.
and so this has a lot to where you grow up
Yes. The rules are different.
impacts
Yes.
what
Yes.
your religious beliefs would be. So is Bara back?
Yes. Can you speak, Barra? Let's see if we can hear you.
Is the audio better now? Is it any
No,
better?
that is good. Yes.
That's better.
Mm. So Esther was wondering whether
Okay.
you noticed any of this difference between the north and the south, because you were raised in the north and you're now maybe central rather than south. But so I don't know what the prevailing religion is in Abuja. Can you fill us in on that? Is it at the
Okay.
borderline between the two, or what?
And
Is
what
it okay
and
if I take Tercia's question first and then come
Sure.
to Esther, or
okay, go on.
I will come to back to that, Esther. But I wanted to address what first, as I said, don't worry about social media, and I will explain why in a bit. Trust me.
Okay.
The first thing I wanted to clarify is that was exposed to the reality of what is the library, I went nuts. Like I didn't my head, I didn't know what was happening to me, but I knew I had to get to learn all this stuff, right? social media didn't make me less curious. It did, because of I wasn't very active on social media for much of my teen years, for my early teen years actually. I didn't I didn't use a phone that had access to the internet until maybe I mean, every now and then, 13, 14, 15. I think maybe 16 was when I got my first smartphone. So I didn't know what social media was for much of my childhood, which explains, I think, quite a bit about my IQ. But still, still, don't be pessimistic. Don't be pessimistic. I'll explain why.
Please, make me feel
So,
better.
okay. So what it did is that it made me it does have an effect on the on attention span. So that wasn't good. So I couldn't read as much because there were so many shorter things to read on Twitter, and I still so cut to university when I got access to an even bigger library and an e-learning center where there was free Wi-Fi. And this was, to me, this was, from where I came from, this was insane. Like, I mean, there were times when even when I was at my lowest, I was grateful to be in that school. I was like constantly grateful, if not constantly cheerful. I was constantly kind of happy every second I spent in that school just because of how good it was, right? It wasn't perfect. I didn't care. I mean, most of my peers were rich kids, and they took a lot of stuff for granted. Understandable. I didn't, because I didn't come from that. So this was, to me, it was just,
You had gratitude, yes.
yeah. So then I had to come back to the habit of reading. So I would read then, because I read a lot of articles. That was when I really started learning about the world. So it was mostly articles. Oddly enough, I mean, contrary, people think I've read a million books. I haven't read a million books, oddly enough. I haven't read as many books as people think. I just read stuff. I read important stuff. I know how to pick out information. I know what I prioritize, what to pay attention to, and I have a good bullshit filter. So I haven't read a lot of things, just a lot of important things. So what social media did is just, it messed with my attention span a little bit, working on it. But I've gotten a bit recently, I've gotten a bit more of my reading back, my speed back, and I'm getting better at reading than there's just so much to read that I have to be faster. So yeah, so what you said about social media, I understand the fears, right? And there are a lot of and it's kind of it's literally the same thing that I'm addressing with my story, but my story addresses what generally people think the world is like versus what it's like when you actually take a closer look at this. Sorry, did you say something, John?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm literally, back of my head, I'm just waiting for, your audio is bad again. We're still good, right?
We are.
Yes.
Okay, thank goodness. So there's a lot of bad. There's a lot of this.
What you're telling us, what you're telling us is a lot of people have an unrealistic worldview, and
yes, it's understand.
You've managed to come through that, and you can look with more more discerning eyes on what they see, what you see around you, but they have this colored view that isn't correct.
Yes, and in just, it's not all bad or all good. I mean, there's lots of bad, and there's there's Ukraine, and then there's Iran, but that's a lot of bad. Okay, so it's not unrealistic it's understandable to, but when you look at what people who are making the hopeful stories, and this is happening right now, working their asses off just to make a tiny piece of the world a little mean something, the impact these people have. And I mean, younger people with their ideas, that can't be exaggerated. It's impossible to exaggerate the power of that. The only reason that there have been so many uprisings in a country like Iran is because of social media. It's because of the exposure internet brings. And you've got the government trying to shut the internet off, and it's like, okay, so we're going to fire Starlink, right? The general trajectory of the human race is overwhelmingly positive. It's just the bad stuff is bad. It's horrible stuff happening, and so it's easy to hardened by terror, by the there's this dude, I think it's the Cosmic Skeptic, a guy on
Alex O'Connor.
I think he defines one of the he defines, when he's defining the problem of evil in the world, he includes the existence of TikTok, right? So I get your fear. That's just the general trajectory is positive. I mean, there's a lot of positivity on social media too. I mean, what's TikTok is I really do get your reservations with TikTok, because what I have a TikTok not by choice. I mostly just post my stuff, and because I don't know how to I don't know how to filter. I mostly just post and run, but there's also lots of good things. I follow like 4 people. So I follow Neil deGrasse Tyson and 3 artists I know. And when you get accounts, you get accounts of people who are talking about technology, who are talking about space, who are talking about discoveries, cutting edge stuff. It's drowned in all the noise impact, not the clowns. Okay, so rest easy, Tercia. Trust me, the general trajectory is positive. Now
you've reminded me to remember Steven Pinker, and so that's good. It's nice to get that perspective. I just want to ask one other thing about your book. It will be a quick yes or no answer. I'm a terrible interviewer tonight because I haven't read your book, but I want to. I
think Esther just.
Oh, we've lost his sound again.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say that Alex O'Connor wrote the foreword to one of my books.
Oh, how nice.
Wow! I wanted to ask about the title of your book. So I'm a literature student. Is there any play on words in the title? A kind of tomorrow? Is the kind sort of that? I just wanted
possible future.
Okay, and
if that makes sense. It's what is possible.
I missed that.
And the book
it's literally a kind of tomorrow. It's what happens to a place like Nigeria and to a place like Africa when
Okay.
And the book that Tercia referenced, Steven Pinker, that's called Enlightenment Now. And
I haven't read it. I've learned a lot from Steven Pinker's. I can't afford to buy books at this moment.
Yeah.
And I haven't had the time to read much lately because I'm mostly focused on domestic responsibility. So but I've learned a lot from my favorites.
Can I just say, because I grew up in Nigeria before leaving to the UK over 20-something years ago. And I don't know if you know the Deeper Life Church, Barra.
Well, So I am well aware.
You're well
And I'd
aware.
actually like to get to your question.
Okay.
I'll merge the two. So yes, I do know the Deeper Life Church. For me, a lot of these groups are, I know quite a few of them.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I,
Live chat.
It's one of your friends, your fans, Esther.
yes, yeah, because I shared it. I shared it on my platform, so
Yes.
got quite a few people joining in, and
Oh, that's cool.
thank you everyone for joining. And also, I've just purchased Barra's book on Amazon, so that should be
Oh,
Thank you
interesting
very
read.
much.
And it's interesting just listening to you, Barra, because I particularly speak on religion in Africa.
Mm,
Because of my upbringing, being indoctrinated into religion, and
mm,
I definitely would like to hear your story and how
mm,
you came out. I Anyone who is in Nigeria and
mm.
comes away from religion identifies as an atheist or a humanist. I'm not sure how you identify, Para. Would you consider yourself an
Both.
atheist or humanist? Okay.
I identify as an atheist, a humanist, a godless heathen, an abomination, a
Oh,
scourge,
oh, oh, yes. So
sacrificer
now,
of children.
oh, so
oh,
someone
well,
like myself, I
well,
don't think
I hope.
if I'd not relocated to the UK, the chances are I might still be a Christian right now. So when I
I
see
understand.
people who are you've worked it out and you live in a very, very religious country. Nigeria is very, very religious.
Mm,
There are hardly any atheists, there are hardly any agnostics. And for you to come away from that, listen, I'm in awe,
yeah,
and
Thank you.
I am hoping that you'd be able to tell us how. How did you do it? Half of the population are Christians, half of the population are Muslims. But you, despite all of that and your upbringing, you didn't tell
Mm.
us, were you Christian or Muslim?
Well, yeah,
mm,
I alluded to that when I was speaking about when I was giving my introduction. So I'll just get more specific now, but I'll try to be concise. But I will
Okay.
start by answering because I like to address things and
Okay.
not leave them behind. So I'll start by addressing your first question when you asked me about the what the North is like versus the South.
Yes.
Like I was in the North most of my life. The North is obviously predominantly Muslim. The difference is obviously the South have are more connected to Western education. That
mm,
makes them significantly less psychotic. Very clear mathematical relation there. The North, there are lots of people who are also enlightened and who want an enlightened Islam, and I got to meet quite a few of them, but they're not the majority. The majority are weapons, really. They're just walking weapons. That's what
Mm,
you live around
yeah,
when you are in the North. You live with people who can be weaponized at literally any moment.
yeah,
That's not an exaggeration. That is the reality. Religion is just one piece of it. Okay, it's I mean, it's the same. The other things are common, North and South, but religion, it's more in the North. They're literally just weapons that walk
mhm,
and breathe and laugh. Really, I mean, they have these normal lives, but it's like a sleeper agent in these American
yeah,
spy movies. It's like you have
yeah,
been activated, and
mm,
you will not believe what seemingly normal people will do there. So that's to address your question. And John, you asked about the religion, and I mean how religion is split in here in the capital city.
mm,
All sorts, all
yeah.
sorts. It's half Muslim, half Christian, but the government is basically an Islamist government until further notice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
unfortunately. So
we
so to
we
go
know
back
of
to
I was going to say, we know of some other humanists in Nigeria, like I can't think of his name now, but he's imprisoned in, I think, Kano, or is it Kaduna?
Yeah, that's Mubarak.
Mubarak, that's the one.
Yeah, he's the one who's always pinned on my Twitter. I don't know him personally. I just got to learn about him. I didn't know who he was until he was first kidnapped by, which is what they call arrest. He was kidnapped by the Kano state government.
Yes.
He is not a Muslim. He has not been in Kano for years. He was kidnapped to the state where they could prosecute him on their BS. I have some experience with that, some personal experience with that kind of system, which is something that it's okay for me to get into it now, but it's not really relevant yet. So maybe I'll circle around to it a bit later. So I do have personal experience. I've been thrown in a hole, but not for my beliefs. Not for my religious beliefs anyway, something else, something even more ridiculous. But I'll come back to that after I address the second thing you said, Esther, which you asked specifically. It was I'm not sure if you caught this earlier, but it's a new age religion. So it's these religions that emerged in the 60s and mostly in the United States when everyone was exploring Eastern philosophies and smoking weed, that kind of thing. So you got all these cults emerging from that system, and it's just another cultural event, like all religions. It was a cultural event. So this religion emerged from it, and so it's fairly liberal. I mean, it is a new age religion. They're all liberal, all love and positivity. So
What's it called?
Ekankar.
I know Ekankar. Yeah, I know Ekankar. Yeah.
Well, yes. So it's fairly popular.
Right.
But it's, of course, like every group has the idea that it's special, right? But you examine history, it's not. They're all just cultural events. One thing leads to another. So this was the 60s America, everyone exploring Eastern philosophies and doing drugs. So lots of interesting things happen when you explore Eastern philosophies and do drugs. So that was one of them, and now it's become a whole thing, right? This is why I always like this. I like this weird meme that I found one time, which is just one of the best things I've seen, where it says, and I'll be very brief with this: the difference between a religion and a cult is that in a cult you have someone at the top who knows it's all a scam. Whereas in a religion, that person died a long time ago, right? So
that's brilliant.
you get that. I mean, that it's so freaking accurate. So it wasn't, and the indoctrination wasn't the problem. It was that's part of why, as Cersei said, when I said I consider myself lucky, I'm just one of the lucky ones. I wasn't there was no. It was more of craziness than abuse. I don't have it nearly as bad as the average Christian child who isn't that exposed to, let's say, Western ideas, or the rural Christian or rural Muslim. It's people living in a nightmare. It's so hard to come out of it. I have far more admiration for people like Mubarak than because you're talking someone whose father sent him to a psych ward to be tortured.
Yes.
And he said off.
Yes,
right?
that's true. Yes.
No, I am in awe of you being in Nigeria in the midst of all of that, and you have come away. You and Mubarak, you may not
and many others.
Well, many others. Well, but their voices are not. You're such a minority.
Yes,
you're such a minority.
Which is why we have to be careful.
Exactly. So
we should while we're mentioning these minority people, we should mention Leo Igwe.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. So he's with the Humanist Association.
Barra, are you socially isolated?
Me? No.
Can you? So are you out? No. Do people know what you're?
Oh, everyone who knows me knows I'm not religious. But I'm not. Okay. I don't go around. I don't go walking down the street. I mean, there's no point. But everyone I'm out. Basically, everyone who knows me knows.
Well, maybe
And
that's
if I,
what one
if
of
I have to,
it's very positive to know that you don't feel victimized, you don't feel threatened.
that's why I'm lucky. See, people who are raised in a middle to below middle class northern family, any class, what the hell am I talking about? To in a fundamentalist religious family in the north cannot do what I do, or they will die. So that's the reality. That's why I never take what I am able to do, what I have learned. I never take any of it for granted. I'm just plain lucky. It's just I'm just here and I'm lucky, right? So I'm making the most of it. So part of how I part of how I make the most of it is doing what I do, is speaking for people who can't, because there's lots of atheists in the Muslim community.
Yeah.
I don't know any closeted ones. I mean, I have a friend who was also raised in my religion, who broke away after he saw my content, after he followed my content for a while, who broke away from the religion I was raised in. Again, liberal. He too understands how lucky we are to
Mm.
have been raised in that kind of system. And my parents were pretty liberal anyway. This was, I mean, we're talking about a religion that was made in the 60s America. So you have
Yeah.
to have a certain kind of mind to even be bothered with a new age religion to begin with. And
They were
so it's
hippies
like,
and they wore headdresses like Tertius.
Yes.
what?
they look like me.
Oh, I see. Yes, yes. It's with the, yeah, with every kind of blunt you can imagine. Precisely. You've got the look. So yeah. So
How did you? Sorry,
anyway,
but I need to. This is intriguing to me. How did your parents end up in the north of Nigeria with a religion that came from the 1960s hippies America?
well, it came to Nigeria before they were born. They were not they didn't live in the north. They
Okay.
found it in the south, which is more educated generally. It wasn't
Okay.
really strong in the north back. They found it as young people in university. Then they found each other, got married, got a nice band. I come from a musical family. That's a different story. So
Good.
it's all very very
You
hippie,
were lucky.
right?
You were lucky.
Yes, extremely lucky, right?
Do you
So and then
play?
they moved.
Do you play an instrument?
I am an artist. That's another thing I do. I'm a songwriter and I play the guitar fairly decently. I don't call myself a guitarist because I've seen too many TikToks now. But I'm fairly decent at guitar, and I'm a writer, so that.
So you've done some songs. Do you have any? Are any of these uploaded? Can we see them?
Not now. I mean I released a few demos, but then I wanted to focus. Not that good. I mean, I'm not a musical artist right now, but it's something that I will get back to in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Are you working on a second novel?
Yep. And it's kicking my. Because what it ties to what I said to address your question, sorry, about being pessimistic about the future. What this novel, fantastic and out there, right? And this second novel I'm working on is that universe. There's a, without giving away too much, the novel has two sides to it. There's two stories happening, but you have to kind of think to get
Yeah.
there's this
Yes.
character who's alluded to.
That's a classic theme, isn't it? Following
Yeah, and then
two threads through time and then merging them periodically.
something like that.
Mm.
So her story is explored in the second novel without anything about her. So I want to
Okay.
do that.
So is it? I
The
missed that. Is
second
it?
novel-
Which character is Eunice? Is it Eunice's story?
No.
I couldn't hear. That's.
Yeah, okay. It's not a character in the novel. It's a character figure. I don't want to give too much away, but yeah,
No. And the bad news is
she's named,
the bad
but
news
she's not
is
part of the main story.
the bad news is that your sound is breaking up again, I'm afraid, Barra. So,
Can I just say that I've been on Instagram. I've been spying on Barra. I found some videos of him singing and playing the guitar.
Well
So,
done. You must share them with us.
If he wants, if he
Okay.
doesn't mind.
Sure, please.
Okay, let's have a look.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. I can.
Well, maybe we can link to those in the details underneath this video. But
yeah, that's fine.
Great. I'm going to say that because
is my audio better now?
Well, I'm going to say that because your sound is breaking up again, and because we've completed our hour, and I am quite strict about keeping it to an hour. And I always tell people it's because when I book a new guest for a show called FreeThought Hour, if I get a reputation for keeping them for 2.5 hours, I'm not going to get any more guests because they won't be pleased to have been fibbed to, to have been deceived.
Can you add it to? Okay, here we go. Let's see.
Go.
Yeah, there's this one here.
Cool.
You can do that. Oh yeah, I really. This is one of my favorites. It might be on my first. I have my first album planned out.
Interesting. That reminds me of something. It reminds me of a Beatles song, I think, a long time ago. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, guys,
so
I'm going to bring the show to a close because of what I said. We've done an hour.
Boss has spoken.
And I want to announce before I do play the outro that next week we have got another author. This one is in the Philippines, and he's a Canadian who's moved to the Philippines to discover, to his amazement, to his horror, how religious, and I think it's Catholicism mostly there, the Philippines are. So he wants to get on the show and tell us all about that. His name is Andrew McQuinn, and because he's, here's some bad news. The world is not flat. He's round the other side of it. And so in order to appear on our show at this time of day here, he's going to be coming to us at his 3:30 a.m. What a hero. So I hope you're
3:30.
Yes. So I hope some of you will come and see that. Great. Okay. Great. So thank you very much, Barra. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Tercia. Thank you, viewers. Thank you.
Peace. What's the V sign? Peace.
Yes. You've got the right hat for it. I don't know. You must have had some sort of prophecy about that hat.
Yes.
So here we go. Here's your outro. Bye-bye.